Right, shalom, shalom. First, I'd like to give all praises unto Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Waharakah Kadash, and double honors unto the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, and honors to you brothers out there, the highways and the byways, teaching His word in all sincerity and in truth. And the reason I'm doing this listening is I was I was listening to a boxing show, and you had a guy that called in, a so-called Mexican, so he was more than likely to be of the tribe of Issachar. And, he was gassing up the Mexican fighters, It's kind of funny, actually. But, yeah, he was going in. And someone mentioned about, the original natives. And he was talking about the Incas and the Aztecs and so forth. And then he was talking about the Bering Strait. And this is one of those things that has been repeated so much that in many people's minds, it's a fact. Even though it's ultimately groundless, it's based upon Esau's deception, the idea of prehistory, which is a falsehood. There's no such thing as prehistory. All prehistory is ultimately based upon falsified carbon dating, the false geological column, and the idea that humans have been on the earth for hundreds of thousands of, if not millions of years, and the earth is billions of years old, which is all foolishness, which Esau invented during the Renaissance era to undermine the validity of the Bible. Okay, the geological column doesn't exist anywhere on the earth. It's a farce. Pre-recorded human history is around 6,000 years, which is accurate to what the Bible records, and then you have a few thousand years before that, which is the days of Adam, so to speak, in terms of the creation, which wasn't millions or billions of years. It was 6,000 years. So ultimately, when you look at the earth in its entirety is under 12,000 years old. Okay, and like I said, recorded human history is about I think it's 4 to 6,000 years. All right, that's proper history. That prehistoric garbage is all a big lie and a farce. Okay, so that's what they do, because when you really break it down, the natives, they weren't in the Americas for hundreds of thousands of years and all that garbage, and there wasn't no 8 ice ages and all this crap. But that's what they used to justify the idea of this thing called the Bering Strait. All right, so let's play this.
So far has been a puzzle without a lot of answers and a lot of hypotheses, until DNA was discovered. Before DNA, scientists looked at fossils and traits in the geologic record and theorized humans moved onto a land bridge, which existed between...
Right, again, like I said, the geological record, which is false. All right, that's based upon Charles Lyell, Principles of Geology, which he was a witch and a warlock, and he just supposed that the geological hold on, let me see, hold on, let me get the right names. Yeah, so it was the correct one. It was Charles Lyell and the Principles of Geology, and he argued that the formation of the Earth's crust took place through countless small changes over a vast period of time, as opposed to uniformitarianism, which is more accurate, right? So that's where they were able to use that geological interpretation to determine, hundreds of thousand years and billions of years, which is all garbage. Okay, it's not a fact at all. It's just accepted theory. Okay, because the witches and the warlocks, especially of the because remember the Illuminati, when they were doing their thing, comprised of all the top scientists and so forth. These guys were all witches and warlocks, so they used their positions within the scientific community to push their pagan agendas, like the Royal Society here in the UK, and then that's where you get evolution and all that paganry, peer gun business. But yeah, Charles Lyell, the demon. And so now after that they tried to use DNA, which DNA is DNA ancestry is one of the biggest scams ever in the history of the planet Earth. It's a massive scam. All right, your ancestry cannot be accurately traced through DNA in any way, shape, or form. That is a scam and a lie. Right? You can barely trace your great father and grandmother using DNA. Right? Let alone going back hundreds and thousands of years. It's lies.
Between Asia and North America. The Bering Land Bridge probably conjures pictures of, well, like a tiny little bridge. But it's a bridge like France is a bridge from Spain to Germany. It's also called the Bering Plain. It's humongous. The land bridge was a massive amount of land which connected.
Look at the timeline that they're supposing that this happened all at 13,000 years ago. No, it's lies. First of all, at that time, 11,000 years ago, the whole landmass was one landmass. It was Pangea. See, that, like I said, the only way they get away with this foolishness is, one, they create stupid little simulations like this which are not accurate. It's just a movie. And secondly, because they changed up the whole timeline of the Earth through Charles Lyell. What the hell is that?
The two continents of Asia and North America. People moved onto the bridge 23,000 years ago, and then moved off of the bridge maybe
23. There is no 23,000 years ago. That's a lie. Let me say it again. According to the Holy Bible, right, the Earth would have to be under 12,000 years old. So there is no 23,000 years. Period. And they have no evidence of the Earth being 23,000 years old. They have zero evidence to support that. Trust me, I know. Yeah, I'm into the science.
15,000 years ago. That's what we thought. And now new science has confirmed most of that theory and added even more specifics as to how First Peoples or Native Americans found their way onto this continent. A new paper in Science sequenced the genomes of 23 ancient individuals and 31 living native peoples and found a very specific genetic history. DNA carries with it a step-by-step record of interbreeding and adaptation.
Whatever. But let's go by what the Native Americans say. They say that they got there by boat and they traveled north across the Mississippi, which destroys that whole Bering Strait. Because if it was true, then they would have migrated south across the Mississippi. Okay. Let's get see that part of the world was colonized by the Israelites after they left the land of Israel, well, around 725 BC, and everything that they built up was during that time period. There ain't no hundreds of thousands of years ago. This is Second Esdras, the 13th chapter, which, by the way, Christopher Columbus used this to guide him to the New World, right? Which was that this is the land that is speaking about here. Verse 40, it says, "Those are the 10 tribes which were carried away prisoners out of their own land," right? Which was the northern kingdom, in the time of Hosea the king, whom Salmanassar, the king of Assyria, led away captive, and he carried them over the waters, and so came they into another land, right, which was Assyria. But they took this counsel among themselves that they would leave the multitude of the heathen. Now, when it says the multitude of the heathen, you got to understand. Let's get a map up if we can. Right? When, actually, yeah. When you look at the record in the Bible of people, right? I need the proper original thing. Yeah, that. Right. Actually, no, that one's not a good one. Ooh, 1 second, let me find it. Right, so this map will have to do. So if you look on this map here, what you find out, right? Let me zoom in. Right, so remember that the earth was changed. Originally it was one landmass, and then after the flood it was broken up into various continents, right, as it is today, right? So you got North and South America on one side, you got Antarctica and the Arctic down the top and the bottom. But then you got Africa, Europe, and Asia, which are still connected as one landmass. Because technically, you can walk from Europe into Asia, you can walk from Europe into Africa. You see what I'm saying? It's connected through what's known as the Middle East. As you can see, Europe, Africa, and Asia are connected, whereas the Americas is disconnected, right? When you read in the book of Genesis, and you should go back and read this history. That's why it's called the book of Genesis, because it gives you the proper history, not this garbage that Esau's talking about. Which, don't ever forget that that record was given unto Moses by the Most High himself. Okay, so it's the pure record. Remember that Noah and his children, they landed in was it Ararat, if I'm pronouncing it correct, which is in Turkey. And then they dwelt in Babylon. Hold on, where we at? I need to find the right thing. Where's Iraq? Around Deso. Right, they dwelt in this area here originally, which is where the Tower of Babel was. All right, near Babylon, which is Iraq. So originally, all peoples was dwelling in Iraq. Let's see if I can get another map. Map of the world. So they came down Mount Ararat in Turkey, and they traveled down into Iraq. Yeah, and it's funny because when you read about the Tower of Babel, it was put together with slime, right? The word slime there is tar. And what is tar? Tar is bitumen, which is a derivative of oil, crude oil, which would you had tar pits in the Middle East. That's one of the ways you would know to find oil, where there's tar pits, because the tar would basically break up through the cracks in the earth and come up on the surface and form pools, right? So ain't it funny that, there we go. Okay, so you see where Iraq is there, right? Right in the center of this image is Iraq. That's where every single nation began, in that region, not in Africa like the Esau tell you, it's bullshit. It was in that region, right? And that region had the oil. All right, now as you can see, what it's got here, it shows you how the different nations spread themselves out, because basically Ham had certain parts of Africa, right? Shem mainly dwelt in the Middle Eastern area, and then Japhet was dwelling up in so-called Europe, and there was no one really too far to the east, okay, and so or too far, do you know what I'm saying? It was in this area. That's the multitude of the heathen, but this is all one land which is connected to itself. Do you understand? And so the nations spread themselves out throughout time into the east and into the north and further into Africa, right? So that's what is meant by the multitude of the heathen, these continents, Africa, Europe, and Asia, because there was people living in all these regions already, right? But there was a landmass whereby, let's get back up the world map, nobody was living at that time, right? If you look here, that landmass is over here, the Americas, because the Americas wasn't connected. You understand? They had, the only way you could get over here was by boat. There was people living in these regions, but there was no one living over here at the time. You see? Right, Salakia. I'm not sure where I finished off here, but maybe I didn't put it back when I got here. Right, so it says what it includes here. This is talking about the table of nations. It says Noah and his family being the only persons left alive after the flood. The table naturally begins with them, and it is from his three sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, that the inhabitants of the earth, as known to the Hebrews, were descended. Right? See, as known to the Hebrews. So they're trying to be goofy here, trying to make it look like the Israelites didn't know about all the people. But remember that Moses gained his knowledge not only from word of mouth, but directly from the word of mouth by Yahweh Shem Yahushai. So we have the correct record. And remember that Moses conversed with the source of all knowledge himself for 40 days. What do you think he was telling him? He was giving him the history, the perfect history. But anyway, all others, the Mongolians of the Far East and Japan, so he's talking about Ammon and Moab. He's trying to say that they weren't, that the so-called Chinese and Japanese people, they're not in the Bible. The Hebrews didn't know about them. Of course they did. At that time, they were the Moabites and the Ammonites, and they haven't traveled as far east. Now, the reason why they can try and justify this goofiness, again, is going back to the geological comment and all this garbage. But recorded Chinese, so-called Chinese history isn't hundreds of thousands of years old. So it's just all bullshit, right? In fact, all you got to do is type in recorded history, yeah? It should tell you how far back. I mean, like, there you can kind of see there the writing systems, like 5000 BC, 3500 BC. Recorded history is more accurate. This whole prehistory, right? Prehistory was made up by Esau. And if there is any prehistory, even that history is recorded in the scriptures. That would be the 6,000 years prior to man. That was the years of creation. Okay. Esau is a joke, yeah? So that's how they manage to, they try and say, oh, this, a Chinese emperor from like a billion years ago. No, it's just like, there's not, okay? They weren't over there for that long. So calm yourself down, goofy. All right, Indians. Oh, wait, hold on, where am I? Hold on. Sorry. Mongolians, the American Indians, both north and south. So they're saying the American Indians, they weren't known. Yeah? Right? The natives of Australia, which are Japhites that, migrated down there, and New Zealand were naturally omitted from this list. So they're saying that these people were omitted from the table of nations. This guy, see that man, idiot. Yeah? So this is the kind of confusion. This is why you can't deal with Christianity, man. So why would they have been omitted? Flipping jokers, man. It may, of course, be argued that all the nations not regarded as descended from Shem and Japheth might be included among the descendants of Ham. What? But apart from the fact that this would give to Ham far more than his due share of the human race, it would class the Egyptians and Canaanites with the Mongolians and Indians, would seem improbable. The table of nations, in fact, excludes the races of which the Semitic East was in ignorance. What is they talking about? And which could not therefore be given according to their lands, languages, families, and nations. So you see how Esau bring confusion? So he's trying to tell you that the so-called Chinese, so-called Japanese, so-called Aborigines of Australia, and the so-called natives of the Americas, they're not in the Bible. It's Esau, man. That's why he got to go, because he only brings confusion and lies. Okay, no, they are in the Bible. They're just going by different names. Okay, the natives of the Americas, they're the Israelites, the 10 tribes that left the congregation of men and went over to a land, a continent, where no man had dwelt before, and formed kingdoms. Simple as that. And they're our brothers. So natives of the Americas are brothers to the so-called Negro. Okay, that was brought over on slave ships because they're Israelites. Simple as that. They're the lost tribes too. Okay, they didn't go over on Bering Strait. They went over there in ships. All right, there wasn't no ice age where they Bering Strait garbage. Like Esau made that up on a computer simulator. Okay, because you could do anything with a computer simulation. Yeah, just look at a game. A game is a computer simulation, so you could do anything. Yeah, that doesn't make it true or real. So anyway, I just wanted to speak on that, man. Like Esau, he's a liar. You're not gonna get the truth out of this, man. Okay, you so-called Negroes, Hispanics, and Native American Indians, you're the Israelites that the Bible speak of, man. We're one people, and we shall be one people again under one Lord, you know, which is Yahweh Shai. Okay, so if that, I'm gonna say Shalom.